who trains your salespeople at Nordstrom? And he said, their parents. I thought,
that's solid. That's
isn't
so
that
true.
gold? That's a real mic drop. And then he went on to say,
That's
we
good.
hire for the smile. So
That's
we want to
fantastic.
hire people who have a disposition and a character and a outlook on life that is necessary to be able to influence and serve people. Then we'll teach them how to do the actual sales.
Hi, I'm Erik Weir, and welcome to another episode of Stutter Your Way to Success. Today, my special guest is Ken Coleman, who is the author of Proximity Principle. He's also the host of the Ken Coleman Show, and he also hosts with Ramsey. So thank you so much, Ken, for coming on today.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be with you, Erik. Thank you.
What motivates you to do all that you do?
A drive to fill the role that I know that I was created to fill. You know, I just think there's intelligent design when we talk about the creation of a human, and I think that there's purpose in two areas of our lives: relational purpose. So for that, I am a son, I am a brother, I am a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend, and a coworker. And so there's relational purpose, but I believe there is professional purpose or occupational purpose. If we want to get really, technical on that, I think we were created to work. I don't think we should just work for provision. I think that there is a tremendous desire that every person has to make their mark on the world, to make a difference. And I think the world of work is that huge opportunity outside of our relational purpose to make the world a better place, to contribute what we can only contribute is what drives me. And so I I do it for myself, but I also get the double pleasure to help other people figure that out for themselves. So I am driven to help people grow personally, advance professionally, lead effectively. Those are the three things that I really enjoy helping people do, and kind of in the role of a coach and a bit of a cheerleader.
How do you assess that and then put together a plan for someone?
Yeah, well, it starts with self-awareness, and we don't teach this like we ought to in our American school system. And you've got to be aware, I think, of three elements. I call them wires, and I've got an assessment called the Get Clear Assessment that measures this. But simply put, if you can help a person as a parent or as a leader, let me give context on this. So think of yourselves as a parent or a leader, or maybe a friend. If you can help someone else see what they do best, to see what they enjoy doing most, and to see what results motivate them, boy, you have really shined a light on who they are and what they want to do. And boy, that self-awareness, that realization of my uniqueness leads me to an opportunity for greatness. But the world's got it all backwards. You know, it's like in this social media age, everything's about comparison. I want to be great. I want to do great, but you can't be great until you understand how you are unique. And in our uniqueness lies our greatness. And so you have to walk a person into a mirror almost and go, this is who you are. This is how the world sees you. And to the extent that you can begin to believe that and manifest that, man, you're going to be so fulfilled in your life.
That's fantastic. How hard is it for most people to get the clarity?
Really hard, because you've got all these hurdles, or obstructions, and then let's call them detours and pitfalls and potholes. You pick it. There's just so much that is kind of clouding us. And so you've got to look at what that is. So you've got to remove, first you got to be aware of what clouds your ability to see yourself to be clear. So the big three: fear, doubt, and pride. Fear is defined as, I'm afraid that something bad will happen if I move forward.
Okay.
Doubt is defined as, I don't believe something good will happen if I move forward.
Right.
And pride is, I care more about what other people think than what I believe.
I see. Okay.
So those three are pretty much the big drivers. And then there's multiple fears, and there's some different kinds of doubts. But I believe that those three are the biggest voices that cloud us. They because I can be clear in a moment. I know that I'm really great at this,
Mhm.
and I'm supposed to do something with this. And then all of a sudden fear, well, but how expensive is that gonna be to go try that? Or
Right.
what if you fail?
Mm.
Or what's your mom gonna say?
Right.
All these fears, and then doubt comes in, and then pride and all this stuff. And then I think those are the 3 big voices, but I think the voices of others. The
Mm.
voices of others who, mean well and don't mean well.
Mm.
And the mean well would be parents and friends, people who project their own fear, doubt, and pride onto you,
Right,
and
right.
it's in the guise of, I'm trying to be protective and kinda go, "Well, think
Right,
about
right,
that,"
right.
and they really do mean well, but
Sure,
they can
sure.
squash our dreams. And
Mhm.
then the people who don't mean well,
Mm.
and these are, insecure, unhealthy people that are around us that when they see us looking forward or
Mhm.
moving forward, they derail us and try to derail us, because when we move forward, what that means is we're moving away from them, and
Wow.
they are trying to hold us back. So I think that those are the 5 voices that keep us from being clear. It gets our eyes off of out here, this
Right.
destination or this direction at least,
Mhm.
and it gets us looking at other things, and that's where clarity in some ways evaporates.
Gotcha. So when you work with people, do you ever discover that they believe lies about themselves? Like you were told, "You'll never amount to anything," or "We've
Yeah,
been in debt our whole life, so you'll be in debt your whole life." I mean,
yeah.
do you find lies, and then how do you deal with those?
Yeah, you gotta put those on the witness stand, but you gotta first understand that, you can combat the lies. So if someone puts something in my ear, a negative thought, and I soak on it, and then I let it sit there, that voice, that is gonna become something that becomes my own voice. In other words, if I let a thought stay in my head, it's only a matter of time before it becomes the truth. William James, who's widely credited as the father of modern psychology, once
Mhm,
said,
mhm,
"No
mhm.
matter how absurd something is, if it's repeated often enough, people will believe it." And we see that in history, right? We see that in religion, we
Right,
see it in
right.
politics.
Mhm.
Well, it's also most true in our own heads. The
Right.
voice that we listen to the most is ours. So you got to understand that.
Right.
Excuse me. And once you understand that, then you have to be on guard. So understanding how powerful the voice is in our head then gets us to a point where we can now be protective.
Okay.
All right. So
Right.
negative thought comes in, whether it's from me or from somebody else.
Right.
I immediately, to answer your question, have to determine, is it true or is it false?
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, so a simple little example. You got to put it on the witness stand, All right, this is what the voice is saying. Is there any evidence to validate that it's true? So I'll give you a super
Mhm.
simple example. If you and I go hiking today on a high mountain
Right.
and I get close to the edge and I look over and some pebbles fall down, and I all of a sudden the voice of fear goes, "Dude, back up.
Right.
You could fall and die."
Right.
Is there evidence? Okay, I'm a foot away from the edge. If I
Right.
get any closer, any stupid thing could happen. And if I fall, there's a 99.9% chance I'm going to die. Now,
Right.
that fear is telling me the truth there. And thus it's protecting me.
Right.
Okay. But if I apply for a job that I know I have the basic skill set for,
Mm.
and maybe it's entry level, but it's new and I'm coming out of college or whatever. And my common sense has told me I've got what it takes to do this job. I don't know if I'm gonna get the job or not. And then the day of the interview, I'm all nervous and I'm driving in, and I'm sitting in the lobby, and all of a sudden I'm consumed with voices of doubt. Like, what are you
Right.
doing? You're way over your skis here.
Mm.
You're not qualified for this. Look at the way that gal's dressed or that guy's dressed. They look better than me. They're gonna perform better than me. And so now all of a sudden I'm consumed with the voices of doubt. I don't think I'm good enough. All right. So in that moment, right before that crucial interview, you've got to ask yourself, is there any evidence of this, or is this just me worrying and doubt? Like, I don't know how that person performed in the interview.
Right.
Do I
Sure. Sure.
think that what he's wearing is going to make a difference? Like, you
Right.
begin to take these
Sure.
thoughts and you put them on the
Yeah.
witness stand. And in that case, you go, is there any evidence? And in this case, you go, well, there's no actual evidence. So
Right.
therefore, I'm being lied to. That's a
And then
quick example of how that
yeah,
works.
that's good. If he could go back in time and talk to the 25-year-old Ken Coleman, knowing what you now know, what
Yeah.
would you tell 25-year-old Ken?
Number one, be patient and learn patience. Develop patience like you would develop a muscle. Work on patience. Embrace patience as the secret ingredient.
Mhm.
Um, learn how to be, and patience is the skill of managing the tension between getting up and doing
Mhm.
what you need to do so that the opportunity you want happens, but also knowing that I have really little control over the timing and I just got to keep showing up. I think that would be one thing. The other thing is get a healthy view of success.
Mhm. Mhm.
What
What is it?
what what does
Yeah.
success look like for you?
Mhm.
And why is that the goal?
Right.
What's driving this? Is it healthy? If is it unhealthy? If it's unhealthy, get it healthy at 25, don't wait.
Right. Right. That's great. That's great. On our show, we talk a lot, oftentimes about faith, family, fitness, finance, friends.
Yeah, I love that.
How important is balance, or is there such a thing as balance, or is it more harmony? What's your take on that?
I don't think that there's such a thing as what we see in the old classic scales of balance. I don't see a life lived like this. And if you're not watching, it's my hands are attempting to show balance.
Right.
I probably needed a chiropractic adjustment after looking at myself here in the camera, but you get the point.
Right.
Um, that is not attainable
Right.
because it's not even realistic. And here's my explanation of that. Um, if I want to be, I loved your 5 F's:
Mhm.
faith, finances, fitness, friends, and
Family.
family. Okay, great. So let's just take those 5 F's. I love those 5 F's.
Mhm.
If I'm going to be winning in those areas, it is impossible to be balanced in those areas.
Right.
It's just impossible. So, where's my priority in those 5 F's? For me, it's faith and family. Top two.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, and then finances are next, and then friends is what it has been, and then fitness is there. So that's probably okay if I'm going to rank them. But
Right.
it's important that I'm winning in all 5 areas.
Right. Right.
But I can tell you right now, if I look at those areas, I'm spending way more time with family, and everything that I invest on the family side is exponentially more important than than my friends. Now, friends are important, but family's way more important.
Right.
And so I've got to look at that, and I got to go, well, it's important that I go deep. And I'm in a men's Bible study every Tuesday morning, some real high achievers here
Mhm.
in the Nashville area, and our topic on last Tuesday morning was the importance of deep friendships, and so we have to make sure we are spending time with deep friendships of brothers
Right.
for a variety of reasons. So you look at that and you go, okay, that's important. It's really important. But if I'm looking at scales right now and I look at my total body of time in a week,
Mhm.
that scale's going to be a lot higher. I don't have as much time put in that one, so that's a little
Right.
bit higher.
Right.
I'm very serious about my fitness now,
Mhm.
and I'm doing that 5 to 6 days a week. Now, the amount of time, though, comparative, it's I'm spending more time on that than I am with friends, so that scale is going to be a little bit lower because there's more weighted time in there. So,
Right.
I think you're getting what I'm going after.
That's, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just the nature of priorities suggests that you cannot be balanced. If I'm looking at those 5 F's that I
Right.
love that you've laid out for your show,
Yeah.
well, my goodness, if my priorities are right and healthy,
Right.
then the amount of time and effort that I put in those 5 F's is very different. Is that fair? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So no, balance is not achievable, and it'll drive you crazy if you
Sure.
try.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. So why is faith important to you, and how does your faith, inform your decisions and the rest of how you allocate your time?
Well, my faith is the core of my identity. So I believe that I was created. I believe when David says in Psalm 139 that I am uniquely and wonderfully made by the creator of the universe who made the sun, the moon, the stars, the entire earth, every animal, the oceans, everything. So it is my identity. I was created by the God of the universe. So I was
Mhm.
created for a purpose. So I believe that. And faith, it's like I've read the Bible and studied it my whole life, and can talk intelligently about just about every part of it. I know my theology and all those
Mhm.
things, but when it comes down to it, that is belief, and that's where the word faith comes from. I choose to believe things that I cannot prove,
Mhm.
and I just believe in intelligent design. And so, if I believe in intelligent design, then that is the foundation of the very reason that I exist. In other words, I don't exist to be a husband to Stacy. I exist to be a child of God, and then I fill these other roles. But it's because of that first and foremost that I have the opportunity to fill the other roles. So I'm not trying to be
Mhm.
so deep with it. Maybe that's not deep at all. It's just foundational.
Right.
So my faith is super important, because without faith, I don't
Right.
have any answers for
Right.
why I'm here.
Right. Right.
That I think that drive me batty. I'd start barking at the moon, I think.
Right. And and I know, as you grow, you're married, you have children. Having children changes your life. So, how did becoming a parent? How did that change you?
Well, I began to love something more than myself, and I think I did that with Stacy, but I know that it went to the next level with the
Right.
kids.
Right.
And then I also began to understand God in a very different way. You
Mhm.
know, I was able to accept God's love and forgiveness a lot easier, because now I could understand it when my kids would do something wrong defiantly or disrespectfully or whatever, and I could single-handedly hold disappointment and even anger,
Mhm.
but also unconditional love. I could hold both at the same time, and I think when I realized that, I was like, "Okay, God,"
Mhm.
because the Bible says God is love.
Mhm.
And so if he is love,
Right.
then I was able to understand him more. I think those are the 2 things. And I think it taught me too, um, probably a deeper primal fear than I even had for my own self.
Mhm.
I think that's also popping in my mind right now. I mean, I could go on forever on that answer,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
um,
It's a deep well.
yeah.
It's a deep well. So, what setbacks have you had that you could share with us? Because one of our mottos is, study your way to success. There is no success without setback. What setbacks have you had, and how did they change you, inform you, inspire you? I mean, what did you learn from setbacks?
Yeah, I've had so many setbacks. I think of one early on in the journey when I was, attempting to kick the tires, test the waters, if you will, of broadcasting. No
Mhm.
degree in it, and no experience in traditional broadcasting. And so I started to get in, and I was doing some things, and I had volunteered at a local sports talk station in Atlanta, and just to get in and try to relationship my way on the air, and I did, and these midday hosts liked me, and I was interning for them, while running a business, 3 small kids. I was basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday for about 2, 3 hours,
Oh,
of
wow.
their show, and I was just doing everything for them, anything, research on the internet,
Right.
YouTube, screening calls, just, grunt work, and so they learned a little bit more about me. And so, at one point, one of the guys said, "Hey, why don't you drive up to Nashville?" I was living in Atlanta at the time. "Why don't you drive to Nashville, and we'll get you a press pass, and you can watch the SEC basketball games, and you can go to the press conferences, and we'll do a live remote with you." And they were
Mm.
doing me a solid. They're letting me get
Right.
on the air, and they would call me, "All
Right.
right, Ken Coleman is joining us in Nashville." And the program director who had let me into the whole building, um, heard about it and called me in his office one day and said, "I heard you guys requested a press pass for you to go to Falcons training camp, and I'm denying it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, and you can't be on the air anymore. We have a policy here at the company that only paid employees can be on the air." And I thought it was curious, because I know that I had done a good job and it didn't cost him anything and paid my
Mhm.
own way. And this is a guy looking at a policy, and
Mhm.
maybe there were some viable reasons. Who knows? I didn't push back on him. I was just kind of stunned because he was being cold about it.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Okay, man, I get it." And then he took a shot. He goes, "Listen, by the way, I don't know why you keep coming in. We don't have a spot for you. We're not going to have a spot for you. You're too old to make it in this business, man. You started 10 years late."
Oh, wow.
and that was really
Full of
crushing.
encouragement, huh?
Oh, it
Like,
was really crushing.
yeah.
That was a setback. I tried to do some other things like some television hosting and did a lot of auditions and got nothing. It just slammed in my face. That was setback. I tried to get on the radio stations. I couldn't get a call back.
Mhm.
That was another setback. I finally broke through, but I can think of um, mental and emotional setbacks that were
Mhm.
largely not even tied to a specific moment in the day, but just
Right.
getting down and staying down and
Mhm.
and being kind of sitting in a hot tub of doubt
Right.
for a long time. Um, I can think of my book proposal, my first book.
Mm.
I think we submitted it to 15 people and we got one maybe and one yes, and we got a whole lot of no's.
Wow.
And all the no's came first. It was like, no, 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 no. I felt like Rocky,
Right,
against
right, right, right,
Apollo Creed, just getting
right,
his head beat in.
right,
So, setbacks with family stuff going on, and you feel like something's going great and then boom, something happens over there and that's an emotional setback. I mean, this journey of professional success has a huge personal component to it.
right.
And sometimes, I've been blessed with my health, but um, this stuff happens personally that slows down your professional progress, and those are setbacks.
Oh, sure.
It's kind of like the detour of life. They're everywhere.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. You talk about like people like not making change or failure has a cost. Like if you give
Mhm.
up and you quit as a cost. Does success have a cost?
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely does. Um, you're gonna pay the price. It's the price of admission, as I like to call it,
Right.
So for instance, you may not be hanging out with, friends as much as you used to because you gotta take that extra time and put it into learning or doing, right? Um, if you wanna be serious about it, you're gonna have to watch less TV and, sit around the house. You gotta be connecting, and meeting people and putting yourself out there. There is the price of rejection. Gosh, it hurts to try something and hear a no. That's a
Oh, yeah.
price. That
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah.
So sacrificing your ego, sacrificing your time. Yeah, absolutely. Success will cost you. It will cost you time. It will cost you some friends because they
Mhm.
just aren't the right people around you.
Mhm.
It's going to cost you. I'm telling you right now, if you um, are going to truly attain who you were supposed to be, it will cost you some friends that are just holding you back.
Yeah.
It might
That's
cost you some family.
yeah.
And I don't mean like divorce. I know I don't subscribe to that. That's a
Right.
bunch of crap. I'd
Right.
never believe that in a million years. But
Right.
I'm talking like if you get some family that's going, we don't want you to move and we're going to get mad if you move. Well, sorry.
Right.
It may cost you a couple Thanksgivings.
That's right. That's right. That's powerful. That's powerful. So your role with Ramsey, you're a co-host. It's a nationally syndicated show on maybe it's substantially on personal finance.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, and we have people starting out or starting a business or a young couple, is there basic advice that you would give them that would be helpful?
Yeah. I would get a hold of our baby steps pretty quickly. If you don't have any debt, great. But you know, my advice would be avoid debt at all costs because it's going to be one of the biggest weights that slows you down. Two, I would learn the power of compound interest and investing early.
Mm-hmm.
I would just, if you can avoid debt or get rid of debt early in your life and invest consistently month in, month out for 30, 40 years, you're going to be fine. I would learn delayed gratification on the big things that most people in life are racing to go by. I'd sit back and let them race. I was watching a track meet yesterday. My son had a track meet, and it's been a while
Right,
since I've seen track, and
right,
the Olympics is
right,
kind of like my experience. Like every 4 years, I watch
yeah.
track.
Right, right,
I'm
right.
watching high school track yesterday, and I knew he was going to run the 400 meters, which if you're paying attention at home here, 400 meters is essentially 4 times around a traditional track, okay? And, almost 4 times. And so I was watching the races before him, and I told my wife, I said, "I wish I could get with Chase. I don't know what his strategy is, but I wish I could get with him." And he did the thing that I was gonna tell him not to do, and we talked about it in the car afterwards, and here's what he did. He's not trained and he's new at this.
Right,
He's a great
right,
athlete, but
right.
he's new to track. So anyway, he takes off and you could see him out of the gates, pew, and he's off and running fast. Well, by the time he got halfway through, he's 200 meters in and he has slowed down tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And by the
Right.
time he's in the final 100 meters, it's all guts, baby, and there is no glory.
You're right,
And you
right,
know
you're
what
right.
I'm talking about? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I said to him, I go, "Listen, I'm no sprinter, I'm no track expert, but I watched the races before you, and the best runners, they were pacing themselves. That first 200 meters, they were essentially running, best I could tell, at about 60%.
Oh, wow,
You
wow.
understand? And they're good pace,
Take it,
but
yeah.
then they get to the 300 meters, and now they start to pick it up, and now they're at about a 90% sprint
Mhm,
at the final 100 meters.
mhm,
And so this is the metaphor that's coming to mind right now on this idea of the rest of the world is racing to get a car. And
mhm.
with that comes a huge car payment. The average car payment in the United States right now is like $750 plus. Um, Race to get a house because they think, well, I'm successful if I get a house, and I'm wasting money by renting. And we know this, and get stuff and go do vacations. And everybody's racing to do that. And I think it's wise to take that 400-meter strategy and
Mhm,
just get out there, start earning
mhm.
money, avoid debt, show that you can be mature, save up cash for these bigger purchases. Because what's
Right.
going to happen is for all those people that are like my son, they just bolted out of the gate, out of the blocks. And if you're smart financially, you're going to absolutely cruise past them in
Right.
in your 30s and 40s. So it's not about the accumulation of stuff in the 20s, but I think that's most people's desire, and that's why they're very unhappy if they can't afford it. So I think it's avoid the trap of I got to have a bunch of stuff and all these things in my 20s, and know that I'll get those things and then truly be able to enjoy those things and not let those things burden me. That would be my advice.
That's a good idea. When you go to college, I've had, 5 sons, 4 have gone to college, or I guess
Wow,
one's in college, and, so college planning is important, I can tell you that.
that's
But
right.
when kids go to college, they really encourage or solicited to get a credit card to build your credit. How do you feel about that? And is it a bad thing to get a credit card or build credit, or is credit important, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, the financial world has built a game, and the big prize of the game is you got to have a credit score so that you can get a credit card and they make a ton of money off of you. So that you can get a house and they make money off of you and all these things. So we believe in manual underwriting. It is possible. Although we would say that, there are ways to get a house without a credit score because of the manual underwriting, and you can prove that you are responsible with your bills. But we've been sold a bill of goods that the only way to prove that you're responsible is to have a credit score. But the only way you can have a credit score is to actually owe money and pay it off. Okay.
Right,
So it
right,
depends on who you talk to. There's a lot of people who think we're too stringent and we're way too conservative on that issue. And I
right.
certainly appreciate that. But the reality is, and you know this well, most people, Eric, just aren't responsible enough to do it the other way. But
Well, that's
we
true.
teach a way that removes that temptation.
Right,
So, is our plan for everybody? Certainly not. Is our plan less risky? You better believe it.
right.
But you don't need a credit card to function, and you don't need a credit score to function. I'm
That's right.
doing great. My life is awesome, and I have neither.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good deal. How do you buy your first piece of real estate? If you listen to this, we have people who are they're in an apartment
Yeah.
now. They're thinking, I want to buy a first house. Or maybe you own a house and I'm hearing this talk about rental properties or VRBO. I lease an apartment and then I rent it out to VRBO, all the different things that people talk about. What advice would you give somebody who wants to get started owning rental property?
I would not own a rental property until my own home ownership was taken care of. I think it's too speculative. I think it's too risky to say, all right, I'm going to watch um, the Grant Cardones of the world on Instagram, and he's very compelling and charismatic, and he makes a very good case. And there's a million others like him. I'm not trying to single him out. It's just one example, and he's telling people use credit and use debt and blah 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 blah. And I think it's unwise. I think it's unwise to buy a house for the purposes of being a landlord when you can't even own your own home and you can't even do that much. So my point is that when you can pay cash for a rental, so that means it's going to be down the road
Right.
because now that becomes a really risk-free asset. Let me explain. Let's say you buy a rental home and let's say that your mortgage on it's $1,500. And let's say that you're clearing 2,000 on it. Okay. Or you know what? Let's be aggressive because somebody go, oh yeah. So let's try to remove the critics. Okay. So let's have fun. Let's say that you owe 1,000 on it and you're getting 2,000 in rent.
Okay.
So you're clearing $1,000. And boy, people love to say that. I'm clearing $1,000. No, you're not. Because you own the home. And when something goes wrong with that home, you got to fix it. So there's no way in the world, and anybody with half of a bird brain would understand what I'm about to say and agree. There's no way you're going to get through a full year and look at your net and go, well, I netted $12,000 over the course of a year, $1,000 a month. I made $12,000. No, you didn't, because you will have expenses of that house. So let's say that you have $3,000 worth of expenses over the course of a year. So now you've netted $9,000, but you're in debt $200,000 on this small home. So you're carrying debt all for $9,000 over a year. And you amortize that out over 12 months. That's less than $1,000 a month. And you've got a giant headache from time to time. Who's getting rich on $9,000?
Right.
And so but the narrative is, well, you know, you're going to own it. And I get it. I get the other side of that narrative. Well, you own it and it appreciates. You bought it at 2 and you sell it 15 years later for the blah, 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 or they're paying your bill and they're paying it down. And well, you've probably mortgaged it for 30 years. So you're not paying it off anytime soon. I just think you got to look at the big picture and go, I like to look at, I'm always looking at margin. So if you look at business, I'm in the world of business. And when I learn about somebody's business, inevitably, Eric, within 10 minutes, I'm going, what's your margins? I want to know what your margin is.
Sure.
High margin business, really smart. Low margin business, not smart. A lot of work, very little margin, which means very little upside. And the scenario that I just described that everybody wants to get into, to me, is a low margin business. Because I think what's going to happen is they're going to over leverage themselves and they just have no margin in their bank account at all. And they're just totally reliant on that renter for this itty bitty piece of margin. But you get all the risk and all the hassle. That, to me, I don't think that's smart. But that's me.
Right, I understand. So if you're looking at mutual funds, you're going to be an investor. Warren Buffett talks about the S&P 500. Other people talk about, you know, hiring portfolio managers. Other people talk about Bitcoin or what they want to buy. So in baby steps, what's your recommendation if you wanted to begin to go to mutual funds?
Well, we believe in the stock market itself, not individual stocks. So from mutual funds, I mean, we're talking index funds. You just look at their performance, you know, and we have a pretty diversified strategy that Dave has recommended, and I largely follow that as well. So my Smart Investor Pro, we've got, you know, international, and then we've got, you know, low risk. And so you want to be diversified within index funds is the short answer. And that is just playing the success. It's just hard to argue the numbers. If you look over the last 40 years, what the stock market has done, then mutual funds, based on the indexes, it's the way to go. It's just the safest, but best return. And that's why we don't recommend things like Bitcoin, not because I don't think Bitcoin is going to work. I think a form of that digital currency is here to stay. Right. And look, it's rebounded. I mean, let's call it what it is.
62,000 has come back. Yeah.
But here's the other thing. And I hate government regulation, but a certain amount of regulation, when you talk about people's money, I'd like some checks and balances. And right now it doesn't have that. I think it's only a matter of time before the world governments come out with their own digital currency. So now it's going to be, are people going to go Bitcoin and others like it, or are they going to end up going, well, I'm going to go with my government's digital currency? So
Sure.
for that, I go, where does Bitcoin end up down the line once governments start going, well, we're going to do our own? It's kind of like, will they survive? You
Right.
know, will they be Netflix or will it be Blockbuster? Like Netflix has kind of survived as all of
Mhm.
these,
It
TV
could.
networks have come out with their own digital. But I just think you look at that and this is all about risk. And
Mm.
so I think it's, if you've got some money that you would be willing to burn in a pile
Right. Right. Right.
and
Right.
be okay with it,
Right.
then sure, go Bitcoin.
Okay.
But to put your life savings and put your retirement future based on that right now, I think that is incredibly risky. And when Matt Damon says fortune favors the bold, yeah, but fortune doesn't favor the lunatics. And I think to put
Right.
all of your retirement in Bitcoin right now, it borders lunacy
Yeah.
because it's just simply not proven. Let's see where it's at 10 years, 20
Right.
years, 30 years. So you could go, oh, Ken, no, 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 no. You could disagree with me, but you can't dismiss that the stock market and mutual funds have a storied history that you can go to the bank on.
Right.
Bitcoin does not. So it depends on your tolerance for risk and how lunatic you are. Because I think it's lunacy to put all your eggs in that basket.
Right. 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 So tell me about the proximity principle. I mean, it's a bestseller, number one bestseller. What's the key to the book, and why have so many people bought it, and why has it impacted so many people?
Because I think it has simplified uh, a tension that exists to I want doors to open for me.
Mhm.
I'm looking for opportunities, and
Mhm.
I think it simplified it in a simple principle, and it says, in order to do what I want to do, and you can fill in the blank there. In order to do what I want to do, I've got to be around people that are doing that and in places where that is happening. So the principle is broken down into a simple formula: the right people plus the right places equals opportunity.
Mhm.
So, I look back on my journey and starting in my early 30s into an industry that's very competitive, very difficult to get into. And the only way it happened for me is that I was very consistent, times where I fell off and got down, but overall I stayed with it and I kept putting myself around the right people and I kept putting myself in the right places. When I'm around the right people, two things happen. One, they help give me insight and many times will open up doors to the right places.
Right. Right. Right.
And they also are going to introduce me to more of the right people.
Mhm.
And then I show up in the right places and I meet the right people.
Mhm.
And then I figure out what the next right place is. And so this is just such a simple formula for if I am intentional to get around people that are winning in the area that I eventually want to win in, good things are going to happen to me. I'm going to learn, I'm going to get a chance to do, and I'm going to get a chance to connect with more of those people. And that's what the book is. It lays out in three sections, the right people, there's 5 archetypes, the right places, there's 5 places.
Mhm.
These are archetypes, but they're symbolic and they kind
Mhm.
of help you see, oh, this is where I need to keep showing up.
Mhm.
And then finally, in the back half of the book, the last section is the 5 practices. What do I do when I'm around the right people? What do I
Mhm.
do when I'm in the right places so that I'm continuing to build almost like Legos on this idea of proximity? And here's the last piece on this.
Mhm.
Most people think they just got to catch the right time by sheer luck,
Right.
and that's
Right.
total garbage. The right
Mm.
time cannot and will not happen if you aren't around the right people in the right places. Now, if I'm
That's
around
solid.
the right people and in the right places, the right time finds me.
Right. That's solid. That's solid. So when you hire people, or you're looking for somebody to bring on,
Sure.
what characteristics do you look for? Do you look for in somebody?
Well, to this question very specifically, I'm looking for likability.
Mhm.
I'm looking for reliability.
Mhm.
I am looking for coachability.
Mm.
I am looking for adaptability. I want to
Okay.
see those 4 things, and I could throw another one in there, honorable. So I'm looking for somebody that's likable. There's got to be some good chemistry there with me and the team. They're likable. They're just a likable person. I think that's huge. They don't have to be an extrovert, but likable, reliable,
Mhm.
coachable, adaptable, honorable. Those would be the 5 things I'm looking for as it relates to characteristics. It has nothing to do with skill set.
Right.
Those are just some character traits that to me they must be present.
Mhm. Yeah, well, when I talk to people to hire, they say almost a very similar thing. They said, I can train you skill.
Yeah.
I can't train character. I can't train your person. Those things that they're looking for.
Yeah, that
You're
reminds me of something that, the former chairman of, Nordstrom said. I think it was Bruce Nordstrom at the time. And of course, Nordstrom is known for their customer service. There's a book
right.
written that I would recommend everybody read called The Nordstrom Way. But I was doing some research on this just this week, and I thought of it. And I'm paraphrasing. I won't get this perfect,
Sure.
but somebody asked him one time, "What are you looking for when you're hiring salespeople for Nordstrom?" And he said, "We hire for the smile,
There you go.
and it will teach them how to sell."
That's fantastic. Hire for the smile, and we'll teach you how to sell. That's
Something,
great.
yeah, like we hire
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
smile, and
yeah.
what he said before that, they said, "Who trains your salespeople at Nordstrom?" And he said, "Their parents." I thought,
That's that's solid. That's
"Isn't
so
that
true.
gold?" That's a real
That's
mic drop, and
gold.
then he went on to say,
That's
"We
great.
hire for the smile." So
That's
we wanna
fantastic.
hire people who have a disposition and a character and a outlook on life that is necessary to be able to influence and serve people, then we'll teach them how to do the actual sales.
That's fantastic. Ken, I've enjoyed having you on. I could talk to you for 2 more hours, but thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for having me.
for coming on today.
Yeah, I'm really honored. Thank you, Eric.